Hi, I'm Lydia Gregory, CEO and co-founder of Figaro. Yes, we work on advanced audio search. So that has three components. We work on tagging, particularly of subjective metadata, so genre, mood, instrumentation for different use cases. We also do search, that's natural language search and search by audio. And then the third component, which is quite new for us, is working on content protection. So we've had catalogues coming to us wanting basically help with the large amounts of content, particularly in the face of generative AI that they're now seeing. So we're using our core capabilities to help with that. So we've just finished the panel on this, and I think metadata, it's used for a number of purposes within each organisation. So that can be everything from distributing to third parties, navigation on websites, to search and recommendation. And I think what we see is actually often it's the case that one metadata set is trying to serve actually these quite different purposes. So we see search is an important use case, but it's actually not the only one for metadata, which is why, so at Figaro we have a core tagging system that large catalogues use to make their metadata consistent across their back catalogue and speed up the release of new tracks. It is a very fast-paced space to be in, and I think particularly that relationship between metadata and search, actually that is where we're seeing the most rapid evolution. And I think it's an exciting time for catalogues because previously you were relying on humans sort of manually tagging each track, and that was the only way to make it searchable, and that's very time consuming, but also meant perhaps tracks that got tagged 10 years ago, that metadata is actually not making them that searchable today. Whereas now we've got other tools available, so we don't have to rely on these kind of binary tags. We can perhaps put scores on tags if we still want to use tags, but also we can then expand into natural language search and search by audio, where metadata is kind of underpins it, but actually we can take on other forms of data. So that can be, we can take on what we call organic metadata. So all of the usage and perhaps search terms that are used with the track, all that can be fed in to improve the search experience without having to affect the underlying tags. So on the natural language side, we have the ability to take in essentially a sentence. So an example might be, I want a track for my crime drama and I want it to be scary and to have high strings or something. So you can see in that there's what we call a semantic gap between that language and the audio itself. And our system is able to basically understand that query and then search across the audio to find relevant results. Where I think in music it's nascent is obviously that kind of relationship between words and music is kind of, it depends on the context, depends on the catalogue, depends on the user. And we're kind of, it depends on the data that we have access to, what kind of catalogue it sort of works really well on. So I think at the moment we're very optimised for sync, so for music, for visuals. But I think there's other use cases waiting to be unlocked as well. Yes, and I think this is why actually the relationship between the user and the system is very important. So if we just relied on the data that we kind of receive into our system, we would just reflect back all the biases. And I actually gave the example in the talk of a catalogue we've worked with where they're kind of British Western trailer music was very well tagged, had a very rich taxonomy, very well applied, but actually music that they had described as hip hop, R&B and rap, and they originally had a tag called urban to describe kind of black origin music, was actually, there was no more richness in the taxonomy than that, and that obviously really affects the search experience for different people coming to their catalogue. So that's where I think actually you really need that expert input from all the people, the users, from musicologists, to actually make sure that the data that we're learning from actually reflects what the industry wants to achieve, not just the kind of historic tagging that has taken place. So I think, we try and avoid the word AI because I think that has kind of philosophical connotations that actually aren't relevant here. I think, yes, the brilliance of the software of machine learning is actually we're able to learn from these large amounts of data, and this is where that can then be used for different use cases. So it can either be used for tagging at scale, or it can be used for these perhaps natural language search and similarity search. And yes, that's what Figaro does. We're using machine learning to learn basically the relationship between words and music, and also other data types of music. So that might be visuals and music, or behaviour and music, and that enables us to offer these services. So it's machine learning based, exactly. The third point, content protection. Yes. So I was saying this is a new space for us, and we've basically found over the last 6 months, really, since generative AI has kicked off, that large catalogues are coming to us and are are worried about well, three things. They're worried about the quantity of music. So we had one DSP currently got 100 million tracks. They were forecasting 700 million within 3 years, but since generative AI has kicked off, they now expect that to be even more. So that has cost implications as well as user experience challenges for them. There's also this question of quality. Now, quality is a loaded term. We don't claim to be saying what is good or bad. It's just music that may not meet the expectations of the user. And that's partly because of generative AI, but actually also just the generally reduced barriers to entry for creatives and ease of distribution means that music arrives on platforms that basically they need to work out how to manage at scale. And the third concern is rights infringement. So you might have seen these kind of fake artists, artist covers or use of music that may have been trained on copyrighted material. So basically we have repurposed some of our core capabilities to work on those problems and also expanding our technology so we can actually help with this detecting content that doesn't meet the needs of the platform. On the rights infringement, it might be detecting music that has come from a service that they want to block. So detecting music that may be infringing rights. So perhaps it sounds like an artist, or perhaps it comes from a generative system that has been trained on artists. So it's kind of like tagging really, but just tagging for that purpose. And then on the quality front, it depends on the platform, but it can be things like there might be out of tune vocals, and it's more about then how do you surface that. At the moment, if you've got a track coming in and one has been made by your teenage son and is perhaps of questionable kind of quality, if it's been tagged as trance alongside a track that's been made by the latest artist, unless the catalogue knows how to kind of position those, both will be fighting for the top spot in the search results. So it's tools for catalogues to identify elements of the music that they can then choose whether to let it onto their platform or how to make it searchable. That can help with operational efficiency, costs, and user experience. I don't believe in perfection. I think humans are messy and subjective, and that's a lovely thing. And you're never going to get technology to standardize humans, I think. And humans will keep creating and keep describing music. We need to build systems that we think of, this is going to get too geeky, so I won't go there, but systems that is dynamic, essentially. The relationship between people, systems, music and language is dynamic. And we basically now, the cool thing about machine learning is we have the ability to have a dynamic system. We don't have to rely on spreadsheets and trying to kind of get it down to that kind of one metadata set to rule it all.